of the Israeli Knesset. Welcome. You are a very controversial figure, and now with all that we see on the news, it would appear that American Jews are taking another look at the policies of Israel, and I wonder if that impacts negatively on the message that you have been speaking.
I think it's just the opposite. I think that the American Jewish leaders don't speak for anybody except themselves and their spouses. I think that the average American Jew understands that what we are seeing now in Israel is not a question of the West Bank, but a question of will there be an Israeli state within 10, 15 years, and that the things that I've been saying for the last 15 years are really true. We have a choice of either beating the Arabs, killing the Arabs, or throwing them out once and for all and letting them live with their own cousins in their own state. And I've said for years, move them out because it's either the Arabs or Jews. There is not the slightest possibility of coexistence between us in the same country.
It would seem to me that that kind of a policy would not be looked upon kindly by a large member of the Jewish community, who would see these strong-arm methods, akin to methods that occurred during World War II in a Nazi regime, and akin to methods that are used in South Africa, that many American Jews, as well as others who are supporters of Israel, disavow.
I think that the American Jew who is not happy with Israel should stay in his own little suburb, or else pick himself up and go to Israel and face the stones and the Molotov cocktails and the mob shouting, Itbaq al-Yahud, slaughter Jews. They were saying this 20 years ago. What do you mean they want the West Bank? They had the West Bank. They had Gaza in 1967. They went to war then. What do they want then? They wanted to wipe out the existing Israel. They wanted it then. They want it now. And if Reich Schindler has problems, that's his problem. I'm not here to stroke Schindler or Woody Allen or his satchel. What we're dealing with is the survival of Israel. If the American Jews like it, fine. And if not, too bad. And if the world likes it, fine. And if not, too bad. The world has a tendency to love Jews after every Holocaust. Well, I'd rather have a Jewish state that is hated by the world than a Holocaust that's loved by it.
Rabbi Kehana, you speak as if you were a man of hate. Are you a man of hate?
It's incredible. I can't believe that people don't realize that when the Bible says that there's a time to love and a time to hate, there is a time to love and a time to hate. If I were sitting here now during World War II and saying what I just said about the Germans, would you say that I'm a man of hate? Of course not. You know, I don't love people who want to kill me. I do love people that don't want to kill me. The Arabs want to kill the Jews. They were killing Jews in the 1920s, in the 1930s. What did they want then? I know what they wanted then. They didn't want a Jewish state. That's what they don't want now either.
You know that it has recently been reported that there is going to be an attempt to call for limited self-determination of those in the West Bank and leading towards a meeting not dissimilar from Camp David. What about the possibility of self-determination? What about the possibility of the Palestinian state?
The Arabs don't want a Palestinian state on anything except what is now the state of Israel too. There's going to be an election in Israel this year. We're going to be the third largest party in the Knesset after this election. Of that, there's no doubt. Every stone, every Molotov cocktail thrown is more votes for Kehana. There will be no autonomous state for Arabs on any part of the land of Israel. If the Arabs want a Palestinian state, let them go to Jordan, let them call it Palestine, let them call it whatever they want to. They had an opportunity in 1947 when the UN proposed a partition plan, which would have created a Palestine, not only on the West Bank, but on a great deal more. They refused. The Jews accepted. The Arabs refused. They went to war. Let them learn. If you refuse and you start a war and you kill us and you lose, you lose.
Why are you so opposed to the possibility of there being a peaceful coexistence within the State of Israel?
It cannot be. Within the State of Israel, there is a contradiction, a philosophical one, between a Jewish state and a Western democracy. And if people can't see that, it's either because they're naive or they're knaves. A Jewish state was created after 1900 years of Jews living as a minority in other people's countries and enjoying such minority benefits as crusades and inquisitions and Auschwitzes. So we decided we want to be the majority in our one state. If the Arabs under a democratic process, through nonviolence, have enough babies, demography and democracy can make them the majority in the Jewish state, and there goes the Jewish state.
Rabbi, you are a man of God. Is that correct?
I'm a rabbi, and I know what Judaism says.
If you are a man of God, what if God chose to have it just that way?
I don't know what you know what God wants. I'm a rabbi, and to me Judaism is what counts. And I know what Judaism says, that God gave us the land of Israel. Now you can differ with that, which is fine. It's your right to, but that's what the Bible says. The land is ours. I want peace. I want peace much more than Alexander Schindler or the local Jewish leaders in this country. I serve in the army there, and my son is in the army, and my sons-in-law are in the army. Of course I want peace, but the Arabs don't want peace, and I'm not a fool. A very famous rabbi once said, it's a sin to deceive someone else. It's a crime to deceive yourself. I'm not a self-deceiver.
Rabbi, these are people, human beings. They have nowhere to go. You have suggested that they become a part of other Arab states. To date, there has been no welcoming of them in other Arab states. Where will they go?
They had an opportunity to have their own state. They started 3 wars with us. They could have had the West Bank. They could have had much, much more. You say that the Arabs don't want them? I don't want them either, because I know what they would do to us. They would do to us what they did to us. What do you mean they don't want them? Why should I want them? They don't threaten the existence of Jordan or the existence of Egypt. They do threaten the very existence of the one Jewish state that exists. Now, I wish them well elsewhere. Jordan at this moment is 75% Palestinian. What makes Jordan a legal state? Jordan was created illegally. In 1919, the League of Nations gave the British a mandate to create a Jewish state on both sides of the Jordan. The British, by fiat, cut off the East Bank and gave it to a puppet, Abdullah, and they created an illegal state called Transjordan. Why is that a legal state? Let that be Palestine. Jordan is 4 times the size of Israel and the West Bank and Gaza combined. Let them have their state. Let them call it Jordan Palestine.
We're talking with Rabbi Meir Kehana, and now it's your opportunity to talk with him. Here is our number. Come and join us. 213-469-5533. Rabbi Meir Kehana is our guest today. He's a controversial member of the Israeli cabinet, and we're going to go right to our phones and say hello to Randy in Los Angeles. Hello, Randy.
Morning, Dr. Freeman.
Yes.
Mr. Kehana, I have a question for you. Before Israel became a state, the British were doing the same thing. They were stoning. The Jews were throwing stones at the British, protesting, and the British did the same thing. They whipped them. They had illegal trials. They arrested them. How do you make that comparison today to what the Jews are doing to the Arabs? It seems like we don't seem to learn from our lessons.
Yeah, well, listen, cops have guns and robbers have guns. That doesn't make cops robbers. During World War II, the Germans bombed England, the British bombed Germany. It was not the same. The British were occupiers of the land of the Jewish people. The Jews are not occupiers of the land of the Jewish people. It is not an equation.
We'll go on now to Nadim from Yonkers. Nadim?
Rabbi, I'd like to ask you a question. How could a religious man of your stature continue to oppress Palestinians in the same way the Nazis oppressed the Jewish people during World War II?
You know, I just love that kind of question. You people tried to kill us in the 1920s. In one day in 1929, you murdered 67 Jews in Hebron. What was bothering you then? The Jewish state? It didn't exist. The Israeli army? It didn't exist. Kehana? He wasn't born. You murdered 510 Jewish men, women, and children between 1936 and 38. What was bothering you then? The occupied territories of 67? You started 3 wars with us, and you lost. And now you cry. If you hadn't started the wars with us, you would have had a Palestine a long, long time ago. We'd have been living together, side by side. You didn't want that. You wanted everything. You started, you lost, you lose.
We'll go on now to Mark in Malibu. Hello, Mark.
Hello, Rabbi.
Yes.
I just want to congratulate you for what seems to me is a pretty darn common sense ability to recognize the patterns and the trends that just simply refuse to go away. And, your point of view seems pretty simple and direct and ruthless, and as it should be. And I guess I just don't understand why world opinion has to chastise this kind of common sense while it tends to forget and forgive.
Because of the word you used, Mark. Mark used the word ruthless. And I think he picked up, even in the compliment to you, a certain aspect of this that is very difficult for Americans to understand.
Thank God we're ruthless to save our own lives. What would you do to save your own child? What would you not do to save your own child? Would you be ruthless? You had better be ruthless, or you'd be a pretty lousy mother. But to save my own people, I'll do anything.
We'll go on to Waleed from Texas. Hello, Texas. You're on the air.
Yes, I would like to talk to Rabbi Kehonn and ask him this question. You are talking about the painful Holocaust and the democracy in Israel. Why don't you talk about what you did in 1948 to Deir Yassin massacre, the Sabra and Shatila massacre, and in the occupied territory that we hear about every day, the killing of children, women, by your people and by the Israelis?
Listen, first of all, if you wouldn't be stoning us, you wouldn't be being killed. If you wouldn't be throwing Molotov cocktails at us, you wouldn't be being killed. What bothers me is that the news media here is giving you so much coverage. Rami Chava was an 8-year-old Jewish child whose name wasn't ever mentioned on the news here. His face was beaten so badly by Arabs. He was an 8-year-old child. His face was pounded. There was no face left. Did anybody hear of that? Sabra and Shatila? Who was killing who? Christian Arabs massacred Muslim Arabs. You want us to live in coexistence between Jews and Arabs? I'm waiting for Arabs to live with Arabs together in Lebanon. You can't live with each other. Sunnis and Shiites and Christians and Druze. You kill each other daily. I don't trust you. I don't believe you.
We'll go on now and say hello to Andrea in Texas. Hello, Andrea.
Yes, thank you. First, I'd like to say that I don't accept the guilt trip this man is trying to lay on all of us for the Holocaust. But the main point that I would like to make is I find his attitude of take us or leave us very strange indeed. When American Jews and the U.S. taxpayer have been paying for the support of Israel all these years, the time, it seems, is long past due when we said enough. And you sit down at the peace table with the PLO as the sole representative of the Palestinian people and with a truly international conference. Or we simply stop sending the $4 billion scot-free of any strings attached every year.
Listen to me. America doesn't back Israel because Israel is nice. It's a democracy. There are no allies in this world. There are interests. America has an interest in that area. It needs a strong, stable, anti-Soviet ally. He has a big choice, Israel or Abu Dhabi, or Oman, or Kuwait. You don't do us favors. Anytime America doesn't want the Haifa naval base for its 6th Fleet, or the Negev for a storing grounds for tons of U.S. weapons to be used in case of war there. Anytime you don't want us to fly the F-16s in real combat and show you what is wrong with them, anytime you don't want an ally, cut off the money. Don't do us favors. In fact, in my platform, we call for a cutoff of all economic aid to Israel. You're not helping us with it. We are a junkie that gets its annual fix. It prevents us from dealing with our economic problems. I don't want economic aid. I want Israel to reshape and reform its economic structure, private capital, free enterprise, capitalism. That will make Israel independent of the world. So don't do us favors.
Rabbi Kehana, are you good for the Jews?
I'm great for the Jews.
Why is that? You are alienating a number of the people that call. They are feeling a hostility that may very well be expressed and have a ripple effect upon others. And you speak with a sense of wrath and vengeance that's extraordinary.
You'll see how many Jews in Israel in this next election think that I am good for them. I don't care what Ahmed thinks, because Ahmed doesn't care what I think. For 1900 years, Jews had this tremendous habit. There's a specific form of Jewish AIDS. It's called guilt. No one has honed guilt to a finer art than Jews. I don't feel guilty.
But I hear something else from you that I want to ask you about before I go to the next call, and that is that you insist upon, in your view, speaking the language that others speak to you. You speak with rocks and stones. I speak for rocks and stones for Israel one. Is that the language that I hear correctly?
Of course, of course. I want the world to beat its swords into plowshares. But when my enemy has a sword, I am not going to have a plowshare. It's that simple.
Edwina from Los Angeles with us now. Hello, Edwina.
Yes, hello. Rabbi, I would like to know, what is your issue? What is your stand on the apartheid issue of South Africa, since Israel does support the apartheid regime by sending weapons there?
First of all, I think it's a terrible concept, a terrible social concept, a political concept. Anything based upon racial differences is terrible. Having said that, the African National Congress is openly anti-Israel, openly pro-PLO. I have no intention of doing anything to make sure that a government takes power in that country which will join the UN, be one more Jew-hating country, anti-Israel country. No way. I say a plague on both their houses, both the whites and the blacks there.
I want to thank you for being with us today. I'm sure that we'll have lots to talk about over dinner. And we appreciate your comments and your candor. When we return, a unique new program that's aimed at curbing teenage drunk driving.